What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, this week, Nintendo's next release for the Switch 2 is out, and, well, the reviews dropped for it, and they turned out about how I was expecting, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers for the month of August, because it's actually looking like a pretty good lineup all the way around. And then we'll also be talking about a big delay that's hit a game people are still looking at as maybe too good to be true. Well, we'll have to wait a little bit longer to see how all of that turns out. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps that a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Tekken 8 and its potential to release on the Switch 2, because the director on the game, Harada, was asked about this at EVO. This we can see is posted over on Eurogamer. This is through a translation that they have here, asking him about the Switch 2 and if maybe Tekken 8 can make its way there. Says, quote, "It's an interesting option, not totally off the table, but it will require a lot of work on the game to get it running on that hardware." Going on to say, from a business standpoint, the Switch 2 is doing quite well, so it would be a very good business decision if you're trying to get a bigger audience. But the amount of work that would have to be done on the game makes it not a very easy decision. At this point in time, there's nothing to announce. So I do think Tekken 8 is going to make the move over to the Switch 2. It could be in the next Direct for all I know at this point, but it does make a lot of sense, as he's saying here, from a business perspective, because the Switch 2 is off and running, and it's obviously going to end up being the big system in Japan over the next several years now. So yeah, you'd want to get Tekken 8 there, and Street Fighter's there. So it's like, well, we gotta get Tekken there as well to be alongside of Street Fighter at that point. The thing with Tekken versus Street Fighter, though, is Street Fighter has a PlayStation 4 version. Tekken 8 does not. And Tekken 8 is also a big game. Like, it's almost 100 gigabytes, I think. On the Xbox Series, when you buy it physically, it needs 2 Blu-rays, because it doesn't have the 100 gigabyte Blu-ray that the PS5 has. So it's the size of it, that's probably a hurdle they have to clear. And then also it just running where they need it to for a fighting game that is very reliant on frame rate without any hitching, nothing like that. But yeah, I do think they'll make it work, and I think we will eventually see it here come to the Switch 2. Also, we're expecting that Xbox ROG Ally handheld, or the two handhelds, to show up at Gamescom next week, for not only them to be shown off, but also to give us a release date, and then also pricing, which is like the key, the big part of it. Okay, how much are these things going to cost? Well, on Amazon, a bunch of infographics just kind of went live alongside of a listing, and it must have been by accident because it was pulled down hours later, but the internet never forgets, so you can see some of those graphs here. Now, this is over on Pure Xbox, and unfortunately, there's not a ton to take away from this that we didn't already know. I mean, we've seen the grips and sort of the way, if we hadn't seen that come out through the images where we had some of the testing that was being done and they had to take pictures of it, I mean, this would be like, whoa, okay, because we saw it with Microsoft, sure, but here is like a really good shot all the way around of it. And then you have like the amount of memory, the storage. It's still pretty straightforward, though, because we have the ROG Ally, and it's just this is that with the Xbox handles and the OS on it. So it's all leading into next week, when we will get all the information we need around this, and we're expecting it to launch about midway through October. And the white model, at least, is being shown off here, somewhere between $600 to $700. Oh, and we did have another arcade racer that was announced, one like legitimately out of the arcade. So you can see this over on Gamatsu, where they're pointing to Fast and the Furious Arcade Edition. This is announced for PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch. You may recognize, if you go to any of the, like a movie theater arcade, or I guess Dave & Buster's probably has it too, there is like a Fast and the Furious machine, the whole setup where you're sitting down and driving with the racing wheel and stuff. Like, that's what I'm envisioning here, kind of mirroring a Cruise and Blast. That's sort of a setup, which is cool because I like Cruise and Blast. It was a fun arcade racing game, and that's what this appears to be as well. Now, look, Game Mill is involved, and I know we see Game Mill and we go, uh-oh, but here they're just publishing. We have the developer Cradle Games, and it's coming out October 24th. So I'm not going in thinking of like a super deep racing game or like a Gran Turismo or a Forza, nothing like that. This is going to be a fun time of just crashing into stuff and going super fast and probably doing flips and stuff when you go off of the side of ramps. But coming out at the end of October, so I'll at least give it a look to see how it turns out. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and their next Switch 2 release. That's Drag X Drive. A lot of excitement around this one after Well, if you had a chance to do the play test for it that Nintendo's kind of put out there, and they had certain times that you could jump in and play, I spent about 20 minutes playing it, and I think the first 10 minutes were them just showing everything to you. It was through a little tutorial, and then you're able to jump in and start playing against other people, and it was an experience. I will say that. It just didn't click with me. I was like, if I buy this game, I'm going to play it for probably an hour at most, maybe 2 hours if I have some people jump on, some friends, and we just kind of goof off and have fun with it there. But that'll kind of be it. It'll like move on from it, because the controls just weren't very intuitive, and the game just looks really boring. Like, it does not look like a game coming out of Nintendo. It looks like it just doesn't really have any personality, no lasting effect there. At least ARMS, as people keep bringing up ARMS, interesting characters and like an art style and stuff. There was memorable stuff there, but not really with Drag X Drive. So how did it do when it comes to reviews? Well, we can see this over on Metacritic, currently sitting at a 63. Now, that's based on 46 critic reviews, and okay, so 7 positive, 37 mixed, and then 2 negative. If you start, for example, at the top, IGN Spain gave it an 80. They said Drag X Drive is a title that stands out for its love of different sports. The game encourages you to practice and be creative to score as many points as possible, rewarding you for every step of your learning process. All right, we also have Hobby Consolas says, Drag X Drive's control scheme and gameplay concepts are solid, and they work really well. Nevertheless, we have our doubts about the game's appeal in the long run. They go on to say they want more environments, tournaments, local multiplayer. Okay, yeah, that all makes sense there. Going to the opposite side of the review scale, all the way at the bottom here, because you do have to go through several 60 and 70 scores. At the bottom, a 48 from Power Unlimited, saying Drag X Drive originated from a fun idea, but its execution falls flat. Online matches are rarely exciting, while the game frequently frustrates due to flawed controls, a shame considering the wheelchair basketball concept is well conceived. That's the thing that keeps coming up through a lot of these reviews. Many of them at least praise the idea of, hey, they're trying to do something different, unique, innovative, and that, I will admit, I can appreciate. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out every time, and I just don't think it's working out here with Drag X Drive. Again, at least in my, I'll say, brief experience, I could kind of tell pretty quickly, yeah, this isn't really for me. I did have a better time though using it, just where you sit down, say on a couch or something, and use it on your pants rather than put your Joy-Cons up on the table. But I also had a hard time kind of gripping the Joy-Cons. I don't know if they need to start coming up with, that being Nintendo or even third-party accessory makers, different grips or things for the Joy-Cons to sit in for these specific games, because it wasn't very comfortable holding the Joy-Con sideways in that way for both of them, and then picking a Joy-Con up to try to shoot the basketball up, and it didn't really flow together nicely. You know what this kind of reminded me of? It reminds me of, let's say Wii Sports comes out. This reminds me of one of the games in like a Wii Sports compilation, like Drag X Drive. And it just seems that it was broken off of that, and it's $20. So it's not really something I'm necessarily going to be paying much attention to after it's out. I guess at that point, it's like, all right, what's up next? Their big September release that, we're still waiting to hear about in a direct that we're also still hoping to hear about. So interesting times right now for Nintendo. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers. Now, these games will be going live starting August 19th, and we do have a pretty interesting day one release in there as well that I'll point out, but let's start here at the top with Mortal Kombat 1. That's a pretty good headlining game, I would say, there for Extra and Premium tier. Now, this is marked as, of course, the PlayStation 5 version. And then Marvel Spider-Man. Wow, okay, interesting. So that's on the PS5 and the PS4, so we'll have like the remastered version of it there on Extra and Premium. That's also, so you have Mortal Kombat 1 and Marvel Spider-Man. Now look, this is the Spider-Man 2018, so I feel like most people have played it who have a PlayStation, but there's always a chance somebody picks up the PS5 for the first time now, and they've missed out on a lot of the older PlayStation releases. This is a good game to check out, especially there on the PS5. And then we have a game that I've been kind of looking at here and there, Sword of the Sea. All right, so this is a day one release into the service, so Extra Premium on the PlayStation 5. And it's intriguing, I will say that, just the way that it's set up, the art style, the gameplay, the concept, riding around on a sword. It's in kind of this almost crowded time period of games that are coming out while I'm working through Mafia, just about done that. I'm also then thinking of, oh wow, we're getting closer to Gears is coming up here soon, and we'll do a multiplayer with that, sure. But then also we have Metal Gear Solid coming up. We have Lost Soul Aside. So all these games kind of sandwiched around sort of the sea. This does make it a little easier for me to be like, okay, I guess I'll at least download on the PS5 and check it out real quick. Earth Defense Force 6, that's extra and premium there, PS5 and PS4. Unicorn Overlord, this is what I mean. There's just good games here. That's also extra and premium on the PS5 and the PS4. Atelier Ryza 3, same deal, PS5, PS4, and extra and premium. Indica, that's on the PS5. Harold Halibut, that's also on the PS5 there. Coral Island on the PS5. And then we move into PlayStation Plus Premium with the Classic Selection, 2 titles. Resident Evil 2 on the PS1. And then Resident Evil 3 Nemesis on the PS1. Now, the only hang up here that's a little strange the way Capcom does this, Resident Evil, from what I remember, doesn't have trophy support. So I assume these won't either. It's kind of weird how that works out. I don't know what the deal is there, but pretty cool still to see Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 all being represented here in the classics section for PlayStation Plus Premium. And there's just good games to have there, especially for someone who maybe got into Resident Evil. And it might sound weird to some of you, but let's face it, some people found Resident Evil through the remakes for 2 and 3. You can go back and see what the tank controls were all about. And then also, part of the trials, I want to point this out because it is a newer game, but Death Stranding 2 did get through this a 5-hour trial on Premium, and your progress will carry over if you decide that you want to buy the game, so your save will just kind of seamlessly continue on. Good way to at least try the game out, or if anything else, see a really good looking game graphically, maybe on a nice new OLED or TV or something you bought. But overall, pretty good month. I mean, generally if Sony has a bad month, especially on the classic side, I'll make sure that they know about it. But here, when they have a good month, you got to give them some credit. So overall, yeah, pretty good for extra and premium, and I'll definitely be checking out Sword of the Sea when that releases into the service on August 19th. Next up, let's talk about Metal Gear Solid Delta. That is out at the end of this month, August 28th, and I'm very excited to go back through the game, especially with how it's been shown off here, where Virtuo's done an awesome job, at least I think, when it comes to the visual styling, and I still need to see how it feels to play through it, the controls, everything there, as they say they've done a lot of quality of life stuff to the game. But there's also this entire online mode that's been sort of pitched, and it's like, yeah, this is how we're going to do it, almost hide and seek, sort of, and it's going to play into the idea of kind of tactical espionage with Metal Gear. Okay, that's at least interesting. It's different than maybe people would expect them to go the route for a Metal Gear Online game. Well, we have a couple of issues right now that are starting to pop up. One, it appears that this Fox Hunt mode will not be available day one. This we can see posted over on their official account, saying our new online multiplayer mode, Fox Hunt, launches fall 2025. Experience exciting hide-and-seek style gameplay based around central elements of camouflage and survival. Now, I will say this. When I first saw Metal Gear Solid Delta, I didn't necessarily even think there would be a multiplayer component to it. So this is like, to me, it's almost like like gravy on top, right? It's like, oh wow, cool, awesome single player game that I get to play through, and then there's this interesting multiplayer. Great. But now that it's thrown out there, it is kind of disappointing that it's not there at launch, all right? So they say fall 2025, hard to say exactly. Could that be October? Could that be in November, right? But then on top of that, they did put this up yesterday regarding the online multiplayer mode Fox Hunt for Metal Gear Solid Delta. Crossplay between different platforms will not be supported. This coming out on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and Steam. That is unfortunate because, I mean, crossplay in general would help a game like this. I mean, it helps a lot of games when it comes to multiplayer to just keep them alive, because once you start pulling off the players, I mean, we'll just say Xbox population for the game, it dies down. Or we've seen it even on Steam, because you can see the numbers where it just falls off a cliff and then you really can't find anyone. But maybe the PS5, like, there's a bunch of people playing online. It's just weird that they would go this route. I'm not really sure why necessarily. Maybe that's something to add later on, but that's just an unfortunate news there all the way around. No good way to look at that. So we'll see if maybe they can work to correct or fix that, or just add that feature in the future. But at least for now, going towards August 28th, I'm very excited to go through what is, for many people out there, their favorite game ever made. And I mean, if you look at the reviews, it is one of the best games ever made. So here's hoping it turns out to be a good remake from Virtuos. I'm certainly crossing my fingers on that. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Crimson Desert, which is a game that we've seen for a little while now, and it's been shown off multiple times, and each time people go, this game looks a little too good to be true. To be this big open world style game, there's a lot happening here. The animations, the visuals, kind of the styling of it with the combat, it looks next gen, I guess is how people were kind of phrasing it, but it looks better than other games around it, and it's coming from Pearl Abyss with their own proprietary engine. Now, it looks like it's not going to be coming out this year as originally planned, and instead it's going into next year, and we found about this with an investor's call. We can see this, though, posted over on Gamatsu, where they say, currently Crimson Desert has been in the process of voiceovers while also carrying out tasks such as console certification in preparation for its release. In the case of marketing, we plan to participate in Gamescom and PAX West this August to showcase our open world build. And in September, we will join the Tokyo Game Show to strengthen our marketing efforts in the Japanese market. Now, I mentioned that engine that they're working on, or they're using for this, the Black Space engine. Some have wondered if maybe that's kind of the way that they have mentioned they're able to mitigate costs or at least keep them under control is using their own engine. And yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but you can also run into some issues as you go along with something that's not maybe built out consistently for open world games like Unreal Engine as an example. Well, they go on to say, the launch of Crimson Desert, our first large-scale AAA console game, has been unavoidably delayed by 1 quarter. From the previously announced schedule, this is due to longer than expected timelines arising from schedule coordination and collaborations with multiple partners for offline distribution, voiceovers, console certifications, and other launch preparations. We sincerely apologize for not being able to meet the originally promised 4th quarter launch schedule. Please kindly understand this is a strategic decision aimed at ensuring success on a meaningful scale. So this is a game, sometimes a game will come out and people will go, it's coming in hot, and it's because as they laid out their certification, localization, distribution, all that comes together almost at the last second. And then there's also a 20 gigabyte patch that corrects stuff that couldn't come together at the last second. This is a game that people are already scrutinizing. It's under the microscope because it looks too good to be true in some cases. So if you launch and it is too good to be true because it couldn't all come together, I mean, you're kind of dead in the water at that point. First impression has been set. So this is a game that, yes, they'll miss the holiday window. And I understand for them, that's tough. But this is a game that seems like they also want to support after it comes out. Right now, it's single player focused, okay? They have mentioned they want to add multiplayer later on, and I assume this is going to become something they just build on over time, so they will come back around and I'm sure get another holiday period at the end of 2026, probably with an even bigger game, which I'm sure will have more stuff to sell with DLC and things like that. So yeah, unfortunately, you gotta wait a little bit longer for Crimson Desert, but a game like that, it's probably a good idea to delay it. I mean, to Q1 2026, where we're talking 3 or 4 months, rather than try to shove it out the door at the last minute to meet that holiday deadline. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, of these September video game releases, which one are you most excited for? Silent Hill F, 43%. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, wow, that was 22%. Borderlands 4 at 19%, and then Daemon X Machina, Titanic Scion, 16%. I did see people in the comments, plenty of people, say, you forgot Final Fantasy Tactics. I did go with original games, like new games, that is, remake, remaster, whatever. So, look, if I had a 5th option, which YouTube took away, still hasn't given it back, maybe I would have thrown it in there, okay? But here, though, just looking at the choices, yeah, it was for original new games. All right, that was it. But like Silent Hill F, especially after Silent Hill 2, I get it. And the look of it and stuff, that more psychological horror, and I'm all for that one. And I think it's gonna be pretty good. So that could be a run of releases now for Konami. People have said if they get that right, because think about that, we're also gonna have Metal Gear Solid Delta at the end of August, then Silent Hill F towards the end of September. Man, if they show back up with Castlevania, can we all come together and finally say that Konami might be back? And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from John saying, the rating system is explained elsewhere in the newsletter. The ratings are 1 to 4 stars. The first rating is for graphics. The second rating is for play action, which I assume is kind of like early term of gameplay. Okay, so graphics would have been 3.5 stars then, gameplay would have been 4 stars. Yeah, I think that lines up. I mean, here's the thing though, they're also dealing with PC games that would have just had better graphics than the NES. So in a way, that's actually high praise, 3.5 stars, when they're also playing a lot of these like these high-powered PC games back then, but still it being next to Leisure Suit Larry, 4 that had perfect 4s across the board there, it still doesn't really compute in my mind, but hey, 3.5 on graphics, 4 on gameplay, that does line up. Apparently there was a podcast that the Video Game History Foundation had with, I guess some of the, or at least one of the people that was writing some of these newsletters, so I guess if you want to get some more information, you can seek that one out, and they did apparently clarified the star ratings at the top. So, hey, shout out to many of the people in the comments who made sure I was aware what they meant exactly. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to listen to the latest episode of Game & Talk that happened last night, I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.